Well, we have made it. Here we are. I can't believe how fast this day has gone. It feels like a blink. And we're here. Welcome to the end, the final closing session of the Ed Collab Gathering, our fall 2021 session. It has been such an inspiring day from Hennekon's keynote this morning that beautifully prepared us and inspired us and got us ready to think not just about tolerance, but respect and the ways that we enact that. Sessions all day long that have challenged us and pushed our thinking and helped us to, I think for me, re-energize and reignite with why I'm in this field. As an aside, I'm someone that doesn't like to do things. I mean, whether you can believe that or not, I would much rather just like do nothing. Like if I could just sit on, like I can see the couch, if I could just sit on that couch and watch the TV I see over there, if I could just do that all the time, I'd be a very happy person. And so like motivating to join a conference day, even if it sounds great, I sometimes have that like, oh, but I'd rather just do this. Things are so difficult, yada, yada, yada. But joining a day like this always leaves me far more energized than I left. I sometimes joke that this is like my triple espresso shot drink. If I were to dare take that many espresso shots, this day fills me with so much energy. And it's because, like I started out this morning with, it's because of the community. So before we move on to our inspiring close to the day, our closing keynote, I first just want to take a moment to thank this community. So please join me and please do so on Twitter as well too, or on Instagram or Facebook, anywhere else you'd like to post. And you can use the hashtag the Ed Collab Gathering. But please join me once again in thanking Hennekon for her tremendous contribution to our day, the way she kicked us off, and for all of her work in general. But thank you, Henna, for being here this morning. You can tweet her there. Thank you to all of our presenters, all amazing folks here from the Ed Collab, as well as folks like you who submitted a proposal. In just a few moments, I'll tell you how you can submit a proposal for our April gathering that is coming up later this year. But thank you to everyone who gave of your time and energy today to share your expertise. You are impacting lives literally around the world. Oh, that's what I forgot to do. What I usually like to do is to check to see where's everyone tuning in from. So I can be specific. Thank you for all of you who gave today, who gave to the world in places like, hello, United States, hi, Canada, hi, United Kingdom, hi, Saudi Arabia, hi, Singapore, hi, those of you tuning in from Qatar, hi, Indonesia, Latvia, Mexico, the list goes on and on. Hi to all of you. Thank you, presenters, for sharing today and the ways that you're inspiring classrooms, teachers, and students from around the world. Today would not be possible if it wasn't for our volunteer tech team. These are educators just like you, who have busy education lives just like you. And sometimes some of them have presented in front of the camera, but these are also folks who are giving of their energy and talents behind the camera, both today and all the steps leading up to today. They help to make sure our presenters look and feel great. They help to make sure that everyone has their what they need to make today go well. So thank you. Please join me in thanking Carolyn and Jessica, Carolyn Hilarious and Jessica Walsh, who have been longtime co-leaders of our tech team. Thank you to both of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today wouldn't happen without you. Tech team members, Amy Kaiser does so much to make sure the website is running, the videos are uploaded, all the YouTube links are working the way that they should. Thank you, Amy, for all that you do to help today. Kristen and Claire are both back. They have joined us for several gatherings across time. Thank you for being back again this year to help our presenters. You can find them if you are on our webpage where it says about. If you just like hover over that, you'll then see Tech Team on the Gathering webpage. You'll see Tech Team, and there you can see all of their Twitter handles, or you can capture them on the screen right now. Please join me in thanking our Tech Team. If there were sessions today or beyond today, because everything's recorded now, you can watch it whenever you want. If there are sessions today or beyond today that inspired you, that pushed you, that are going to lead to something new or something remembered that you do more and better in your classroom, I encourage you, I invite you and encourage you to please go back to the web page where that session came from, scroll down to the bio section, and if we have a Twitter handle for your presenters, please tag them. A virtual conference like this means you can tune in anytime from anywhere. The one thing that's missing, though, is that like applause at the end, right? Or that grabbing someone in the hallway to just say like, I loved your session, can I ask you a question about it? Our presenters have given up their time and energy to support you today. So if you feel energized by them, your little bit of reaching out, tagging them to say thank you or quoting something they said is really so meaningful to them. So we'd love if you'd do that. You can also tag us at the Ed Collab and we'd be happy to retweet it and be sure to include that hashtag. All of our gatherings are always free. They're our gift to the education community. And because they're free, we ask you to consider paying the joy forward. So we have 3 charities that we've adopted for today. We ask our keynotes to recommend charities that are meaningful to them, and then we share those with you. And they are one of the ways that you can pay your work forward. So today's adopted charities are KindWorks, Elevated Thought Foundation, and the Lakota People's Law Project. You can go to our charity page. There's the link, or you can find it right on the Gathering website or on our Twitter handle at the Ed Collab. And if you follow along and find that link, please do go to the charity page. And if you're financially able, pay the joy forward. That's one way to give. You also don't have to pay the joy forward to one of these charities. If there's another charity that is meaningful to you that you'd like to take what you would have spent on a cup of coffee or perhaps on lunch or even on registration for a conference day like today, you could pay that forward somewhere else. Or it doesn't have to be financial. Find another way that you can pay the joy meaningfully forward that you experienced today. And thank you for doing that. Here at the Ed Collab, we don't just put on the Ed Collab gathering, we do lots and lots of things all year long. And so please visit us at our homepage, theeducatorcollaborative.com. There you can learn about lots of things, including our in-school and remote professional development. We're happy to study and learn with you and your team. You also, from that page, can sign up for our email list or find ways to follow us on social media. There are lots of ways that we learn throughout the year, and even during the year, we find new ways to learn with you too. So we hope that you'll join us. Okay, before we move to our closing keynote, our tradition is at the end of each gathering, we let you know about the next one. So, drum roll, I can't believe that there's a date that is 2022. It was only 2000 yesterday. How is this happening? How is it 20? Okay, anyway, spring 2022, the Ed Collab gathering. I am so honored and pleased to say that our spring 2022, the Ed Collab gathering keynote speaker will be Lehman Pham. Yay! I know, I'm also like, really? Wow. So our spring gathering, put it on your calendar, will be April 2nd, Saturday, April 2nd. We look forward to seeing you right back here on the same website. That's where our spring gathering will take place. And we are so delighted and honored to have Lehman Pham join us as our opening keynote. Win is the author and illustrator of this incredible, gorgeous, will make you cry, will make you feel moved book, Outside Inside. It is a one artist's take on the pandemic and what we've been through and continue to go through emotionally, mentally. It is beautiful. I've shared it with so many schools. If I've worked with you, you've likely seen me hold it up and read it out loud to you. So if you don't have that, make sure you grab it. I also, on a personal note, just want to say, Shannon Hale and Lehman's book, Real Friends, was one of the books that made my daughter a reader. She's now a high schooler, but when she was younger, graphic novels were the gateway for her. And so Win has authored or co-authored or illustrated a number of graphic novels. In addition to that, she illustrates and or author illustrates board books, picture books, graphic novels. She's multi-talent. These are just a few of the many, many, many books that she's produced and contributed to. So we are so, so excited. Perhaps smartly so. Win is not yet on Twitter, so you can just hashtag her name if you'd like. She also says that she is sometimes on Facebook and sometimes on Instagram with an actual account. So you could also welcome her to the gathering there too. But please join us in celebrating that. I've neglected to do this in the past, just a small thanks to Phil and the Author Village. Phil's a dear friend of the Ed Collab. He's been a past keynote with us, Phil Bildner, and he now heads up the Author Village, which many of you already know, but if you don't know it and you're in a school and you're looking for amazing authors or illustrators to come and speak to you at your school, that's one of the places you can go to find them. So Phil made the connection. Basically, when I wrote to Phil, I was like, could Lehman please be our keynote? Is she available? And then I gushed a lot. I was like, here's all the reasons why I think she's awesome. Please let her know. So thank you, Phil, for that connection. And Win, we can't wait to see you. Now, the Ed Collab Gathering is not just a keynote. The Ed Collab Gathering is also an entire day of learning. And that entire day of learning comes from you. So I'm going to say what I often say. If you have enjoyed the gathering, if you've sat back and said, these people are so brilliant. Oh, wow, I'm learning so much. And then if you've ever thought, maybe one day I could do that. Maybe I could submit a proposal. Maybe I could be in the gathering. My answer is yes, you should. In fact, you probably should have already, but yes, you should right now. There are many of you who were nervous to send a proposal, and then you did. And then after the fact, you said, I'm so glad I did. Be that future you, be the you that submits a proposal to the April 2nd gathering, and you get to present to the world. So you will find the link to the proposals both in the menu bar on the top, wherever you can see that now, on the top of our homepage. You also can follow us on social media, and you'll see some links to that as well too. So April 2nd, 2022, you can join Lewin Pham and you, hopefully, presenting at the gathering. Without further ado, it's my great privilege to introduce to you our closing keynote for the fall 2021, the Ed Collab Gathering. Textured Teaching Meets the Moment. Lorena Germán is an educator, an activist, and I don't know how she does it. I think someone who can bend time, because Lorena does everything everywhere in a really important way. Lorena produces and shares incredible research, practice, and knowledge and advocacy with our profession. Her voice is one of those voices that really matters and is really changing the way that we think about our classrooms and how we teach our children. Lorena is a co-founder of the Multicultural Classroom. That's one of the main places you can find her. You can also go there to contact her if you'd like her to come work with you or speak to your school if you have questions for her as well. She's co-founder of Disrupt Text. She's the pedagogy chair of the EduColor Working Group. She's chair of NCTE's Committee Against Racism and Bias in the Teaching of English. And while my copy has not yet arrived, but I see that other people's had today, so I just think that maybe the mail is late. But today's the day that people are starting to receive in their hands Lorena's brand new book, Textured Teaching, a framework for, I forget the whole title, it's behind her body there, Textured Teaching. I just heard the buzz. That I'm not joking, I just did. That might actually be the mail. Anyway, Lorena's book, Textured Teaching from Heinemann, is out right now. And Lorena, I'm so sorry that I didn't type down the whole name and I didn't fully look that it was behind your body. Oh, there it is. Wait, no, it's in the books too. A Framework for Culturally Sustaining Practices. This is live, folks. So Lorena, congratulations on your title. We're so happy to have you here. And thank you for closing our day out. And before we go and before we pass it over to Lorena, remember, if you're inspired at all today, please pay the joy forward. Please mark your calendars for April 2nd. And please submit a proposal to be a part of that gathering. All right, without further ado, Lorena, I turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. I am so happy to be here. I am so grateful for the opportunity to speak with all of you and to be part of this Ed Collab gathering today. I'm so excited because what my face means to all of you is that today is almost over And not because it's over, but the good news is that you're going to be able to process all the learning that you've done soon, right? To just sit and think through, take notes, review, and just break it all down to pieces and think about how to implement it. So I'm happy to be part of the process that ends the day for you. And so, what I want to talk about today is how textured teaching, this framework that I've shared with all of you through my book, how that framework, how textured teaching meets this moment. How does it meet the time that we're in and the type of teaching that we have to do right now? My name is Lorena Germán, for those that don't know. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me before I dig into my topic. I'm sure you've heard, right, from Chris that I am co-founder of Multicultural Classroom as well as Disrupt Text. And I was here 1 or 2 years ago with Disrupt Text doing a keynote as well. And that was such a great experience. So I'm big fans of the Ed Collab Gathering. I'm also the chair for NCTE's Committee Against Racism and Bias in the Teaching of English. I'm excited about these different roles because they all intersect in the work that I've been doing for many years in my career, but there are different manifestations of it. Through Multicultural Classroom, we work with schools and organizations and individual teachers. With Disrupt Text, we're specifically thinking about the ELA field. And then with the Committee Against Racism and Bias, we're taking really important research and thoughtful position statements and a lot of the work that has been done at NCTE by our academic elders, as I call them, and turning it into tangible products for teachers to use in their classrooms. And then at EduColor, I am the chair of pedagogy. And there, I'm very excited to do important work at the intersection of race and education and policy. And hopefully we can continue to do work and both inspire educators and educators of color in particular in our field, but also bring about some tangible and concrete change in our country. And then on a more personal level, I am Dominican. And so I was born in Dominican Republic and raised here in the United States. I'm a Spanish speaker. That was the first language that I learned. I'm a woman. I am an immigrant. I am a mommy of 3 kids, 6 and under. So, I'm I'm busy. It's a lot. And I'm also a wife. And I want to end this part with the personal because all of these personal details impact and have molded the professional. They are the impetus for the professional. And it's important for today's topic because that's actually where I want to start. I want us to think about the fact that we, humans, are not blank slates. The students walking into your classrooms are not blank slates. The teachers, you walking into those classrooms, are also not blank slates. We all have so much richness that we bring with us, ideas, values, practices, and texture, right? All of that creates texture, if you will, in a classroom. And so when I talk about texture, I'm thinking very concretely about the definition of texture, right? Like it's a thing that waves and curves and has feeling to it. I think about, for example, that a wall and in a home that is textured, has textured paint. You can feel it and it has rough edges and bumps, etc. And so when I think about that texture and now I apply it metaphorically, if you will, to education, I think about the ways that a one-size-fits-all approach just is not going to work when you've got all of this texture in a room, right? Both the texture that the students bring and that the teacher brings, or multiple teachers, if that's the case in your classroom. And so beginning from this point of view that we are not blank slates, I actually want to tell you a very quick story. There's a couple, you'll see some names here on the screen. Let me walk you through this. So there was a person named Jose Rafael Garcia many years ago. Well, no, not many, but growing up was many years ago. And he was a writer. He loved poetry. He wrote songs and also was an engineer, moved to the United States. And here, as an older adult, began a career in education, and he became a science teacher in his local public school. Um, Now, here's a person, right, who is an immigrant, who has come to this new country, and against all odds and not knowing the language very well, has become a teacher, a science teacher in public education at a high school, and went and got his master's in education. His wife, Victoria, um, in Dominican Republic, where they met and married, was she worked in the Department of Education there, in the National Department of Education. She also was an activist. They were both activists fighting against the dictatorship that was in the Dominican Republic and the post governments that were also very oppressive. And so she gets here, or she comes to the United States, and she can't really practice any of the things that she was able to do in her home country. And so she turns to what she learned, the handiwork that she learned, which was sewing, and becomes a seamstress and owns a business and does dresses for the quinceañeras, for weddings, for parties, for all special events in that entire city and her community. In another avenue, if you will, you have Alipio Escoto in Dominican Republic, who dropped out of school very early, like early middle school, and turned to shoemaking and used shoemaking, right? Became an expert in shoemaker, where he, can make a very good high quality shoe out of nothing, right? Out of pieces. And that became his craft for the rest of his life. And it's how he supported his family. And married Urania Escoto, who was a homemaker, who cared for her entire family, for all of the children that she had, many children, and was the person who allowed Alipio to do the work, to bring in, the funds to be able to live as a family and survive in a very poor part of the Dominican Republic. And so what you have here are four ingenious, not blank slates, who, the four of these gave birth to Adalberto Escoto and Jasmine Garcia, two people who met in Dominican Republic later in life. And Adalberto Escoto becomes a person who has to fight against his father saying, come and be a shoemaker, come and, leave school and do this, and has big dreams. And what he does is he becomes the founder of the sport of Taekwondo's national federation in the Dominican Republic. Adalberto goes on to be president of the Pan American Taekwondo Union, so the union of all of the nations of this side of the world who do Taekwondo. He becomes the leader of that. Adalberto also moves to the United States and becomes an immigrant after being married to Jasmine Garcia, whose parents up at the top, always pushed her and said, your education, you have talents, what will you do? And encouraged her and pushed her to do well. And so she gets here and she starts doing so many things, and she is a translator, and she can actually do a really good job and lands numerous jobs. They're both undocumented for a while, but eventually are able to fix all of that and figure it out and establish themselves as a family here. And so what I wish my teachers would have known is how these were my ancestors, and that in walking into a classroom, that's who's walking in there with me, and that existed for each and every single one of my peers. And so that we deserved an education that met us there. We deserved an education that highlighted our background, that activated our prior knowledge, and really took us beyond the very basic stuff we were covering. Because when they thought we didn't know, when they thought we didn't have, when they thought we didn't believe, or when they simply saw us as needing information, right, needing knowledge because we're blank slates, they missed our richness, they missed our texture. And so I wonder how my education would have been different, how they would have taught us. I wonder how curriculum would have changed if they knew all of the people sitting in there, if they really dared to find out who are these people sitting in front of us. Not what does their skin color tell me about them. Not what does this city that I've heard rumors about tell me about them. But who are the souls in here? Who are the ancestors that have played a role in their formation, in their becoming of people? And so that's how we get to texture teaching. It is my offering. It is my answer to how to do that. How can I teach in a way that supports the young people in front of me, welcomes all of who they are, challenges them, and leads to legitimate learning, all while really addressing the moment, all while really talking about social justice and working for it. And so, it's not a surprise for me to say that this nation is on fire. It's been on fire probably since, I don't know, forever, but especially burning, especially hot since 2016, right? Or 2015. And so what does it mean to teach in this moment? Or a better question, really, because I think we know that by now, right? It's a lot of work to teach in this moment. But a better question is, how can I teach well in this moment? How does my teaching change to meet this moment that we're in? And so COVID is rampant, and it's been rampant. It kind of died down supposedly, and now it's flourishing again. Our political climate is on fire since 2015. It just seems like this is not going to stop for now. We're seeing that politically speaking, we are being told to shut up. We are being told to stop. We're being told to not welcome these kids, to not welcome their ancestors and their stories. That's what we're being told to do in a number of states, and really just culturally speaking, right? Issues of race are just in our face. No one can hide. It is just obvious, right? And so you've got to have some racial literacy to be a teacher right now, regardless of your content area, because it's coming up. Issues of gender are also at the forefront. What does it mean to be a girl? What does it mean to identify as a particular gender? How can we help students feel comfortable and protected in a space so that they can explore that freely? We know that issues of sexuality are at the forefront of our society's culture. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? How do we shift, gender-based sexual expectations, social expectations of impropriety or modesty, and all of that, right? We know that all of this shows up in the classroom. It shows up in this field that we're in of education. And so this nation is on fire. I don't think there's any other way to really think about that. I thought, in writing this and creating this, like, is there a way that's less alarming? And there isn't. There isn't, because I think if I were to change this and if I were to say that this nation is in a troubled time or we're in challenging times, I think it downplays it, because the reality is that for a group of us, right, many of us, these situations are life and death situations. And so I don't want to minimize the moment that we are in. Our nation is on fire and everyone has a role to play, but I want to talk to teachers. That's my field. I'm not going to go and talk to doctors. I am not going to go and talk to plumbers. I'm not going to talk to pilots. I want to talk to teachers, because we are implicated in this moment. We are implicated also in how we get out of this moment. And so, as I said, texture teaching is for and about social justice. It is how we answer the question, how do I teach about this stuff in the classroom? How can I teach about social justice? This is not magic. This is not about your particular spark that you have. This is about hard work, a method, right? This is about strategies and coming up with a system, a framework, and sticking to it, right? And trusting in that process and bending as you should, but kind of having a vision and walking through. And so I've documented what it meant for me, right? Based on a culturally sustaining pedagogies. I've documented what it's been for the past, 10 something years. And that is the book. And that is the framework. It's simply my way of saying, I am grounded in a culturally sustaining pedagogy. And this is what it looks like in my classroom to teach for and about social justice. And so it's a strategy-based framework for classroom implementation. I am hoping that what I'm going to share, this offering that I have for you, will offer you some really useful tips, things that you can write down and say, I'm doing this thing tomorrow. My work is always about, what do I do tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning? What does this look like when I walk in at 8:30? And so I'm hopeful that I can share with you some content today that is going to answer that. So before I get into the framework, I want to talk really quickly about 3 values that inspire textured teaching. What are the teacher's values? What are the values that you hold dear to your why? Okay, the why. Why am I here? Why did I choose this career? Why am I walking into this classroom? Why am I even doing any of this? Why do I want to learn and teach about social justice? And so the 3 values that inspire me, that inspire textured teaching, I believe are the values for social justice anyway. Love and community, right? So I am very much about love, not the send me some flowers love, but compassionate action-based love. The love that says there is a problem here and I'm going to be part of the solution. I'm going to take action. So love that is action-based, right? And community, because we've got to love in community. I can't love you and you don't know. Right? That's not right. I can't love you and say, yeah, but I don't really go and I don't participate. No, we've got to be in community with one another. And so love and community they go together and they're very important. Justice, right? Fairness, equity, not just equality. But this value of justice is really important, understanding that there is a need for redistribution of power because there is an imbalance and inequity in every institution of our society, and that wherever you are, wherever you, person watching me right now, wherever you find yourself, be it in a school, be it in an after-school program, be it in a community center, you are guided by love and community and justice and truth and knowledge. And truth and knowledge, which is why I think this stuff is under attack, politically speaking. In order for me to know that justice is needed, I need to know the truth. And then I need to develop the knowledge, right, to try to push forth some type of just idea. Why? Because of love and community. And so these values and those 2 clusters, because technically, sure, you could say there's 5. But I've clustered them that way. And so these 3, like pillars, these 3 values really are what guide textured teaching. The traits that I'm about to get into come from this. These are the big ideas. Now, what does this look like in a classroom? Let's dig into these 4 traits, okay? The 4 traits of this textured teaching framework are that it's student-driven and community-centered. It is interdisciplinary. It is experiential, and it is flexible. And I'm going to dig into each one just to walk you through this and tell you why. Why is this important, particularly in this time? What I want to do is give you a moment, and before I get into it, and I want you to answer 2 questions. Maybe you're jotting something down, or maybe you're taking notes, or maybe you just want to pause and think for a minute. I want to let you process. And I want you to think first, what are the traits? What are my values? What are my values as a teacher? What motivates me? What's my why? And if you could come up with some traits to your teaching, what do they look like? So I'm just going to give you a moment. I'm going to drink some water and let you think. Okay. I kind of feel like Steve from Blue's Clues because I'm making pretend that I know you're done. But you can always pause this if you need more time. But I'm going to keep going and jump into each trait, okay? And I hope that just that alone has given you some food for thought. So why do we need student-driven and community-centered education? Why do we need a trait or a framework, that has this as a trait, a student-driven and community-centered approach? Well, these are just some of the reasons on the left. First, we have a critical gap that happens in elementary school. There's a lot of research that's been done that shows that there's this fourth grade reading level that happens, particularly among boys of color, even more so among African American boys or Black boys. And while I don't want to focus specifically on that, just because one of the ways that they measure that is through standardized testing, and I think that standardized testing is not the way for us to solely arrive at any conclusions about education. I do want to highlight that there's actually a number of other patterns that happen too in that same time frame. That fourth and fifth grade happen to be like a turning point for a lot of students of color, of all genders. So there's the reading level that drop that happens. We also start heading towards middle school. And so due to a lot of the hormonal shifting, due to a lot of the, now kids are like 10 and 11. And so I know that in homes, particularly immigrant homes, if you're a 10 or 11-year-old, you're ready for more responsibility as part of, for those immigrant families, particularly the ones that are working class, right? Like there's work for you to do at home, whether it's babysitting, whether it's, caring for other people and the home itself. And so there's so much that is shifting in this period of time that you start to see, or what seems like, academic disengagement. And it is not, it is simply that priorities are changing for them, right? And there's a lot of demands for them. And so we start to see these drops that are happening nationally that start to create this little split as people head to middle school. And then you start to see these different paths, and you start to see the kids who are just not doing as well academically. But then you see others, right, that become tokenized sometimes, like, this is the one, she is doing great, he's doing really great. And so he gets pushed in that other direction, right, where they end up in the better classes and kind of tracked for success and tracked for not success. And so that is something to think about as a teacher, right? As a fourth and fifth grade teacher, sixth and seventh grade teacher, how can I be, how can my student-driven approach, where I am centering them, their lives, their choices, and their interests, how can I address this drop that happens? School closings. School closings are happening all over the country, especially in places where gentrification is happening, which we know is in communities of color. And so a student-driven and community-centered approach is not only going to address that, but is going to help students navigate that reality and maybe even take action, maybe even take community action to stop this process or to slow it down. We know that graduation rates for kids of color are low. They're always low, unless, right, research shows that unless it's student-driven and community-centered, we're going to have low graduation rates. So one of the things that curtails it the most, like I'm thinking, for example, of Tucson, Arizona, and the ethnic studies, curriculum and teaching approach that they had there, and how that was the single factor that they were able to identify and pinpoint as the turning point for when graduation rates changed in that high school and in that district. They went from like 40 to 50% graduation rate to like 90% graduation rate once they've implemented this curriculum, this new approach that is student-driven and community-centered, among other things. We are seeing in the news how remains of Indigenous children are being unearthed in Canada and in the United States. A student-driven and community-centered teaching approach would never have led to that. This is criminal activity. This is this is beyond. This is horrible, painful. A horror movie. A horror movie. I clearly you can see that I'm overcome with emotion about this. Yes, because I'm also a mother, and I don't know what I would do. I would know what I would do for my children, right? And I'm thinking about how the entire purpose of those assimilation schools, both in Canada and in the United States, were completely opposite of student driven, completely opposite of community centered. It was fully about come, stop being who you are. You don't know what it is that you need. I know what you need. To hell with your community and your ways of being. Come and do the things we're saying. That is a nightmare. And so to be student driven and community centered is to be the opposite of that and to actually come forward in a more holistic and humanizing way. Which leads us to why it also needs to be interdisciplinary. It boggles my mind. And this wasn't the case at first, because like many of you, I knew of education simply what I knew of education, what I had experienced when I became a teacher. And so it wasn't until years in that I was like, wait, why is it that I can't talk about math and English? Like, why is this such a big deal? Like, why can't I infuse science into what we're studying? Oh, I can. Why can't I? Right? And so having an interdisciplinary approach actually, just to go back to the standardized testing issue, it actually is going to go beyond what standardized testing is trying to assess. They want to assess the basics. Can you read this and tell me what it means? Interdisciplinary is like, not only can you read this and tell me what it means, but let's connect it to other things. Let's understand the ways that it is embedded in this Octavia Butler fictional story. Let's understand the way that science is playing a role in this story that features climate change. And so it's going to go beyond simple comprehension into actual analysis, which is the one that we want to get into as English teachers, right? We're dealing with the post-Trump poison. And we're not very post, I have to say that to feel a little better, but, we're dealing with this political poison of this is true and this is not true, as well as people just showing how much they don't know. And so having an interdisciplinary approach is part of how we don't let that happen again. Is part of how we say, yeah, I know that you're just making sense of this one strand or this one idea, and I want you to see the way that it connects to these other ideas. We want young people to do this next bullet point, to have anti-oppressive critical thinking, to understand that this is an institution, this is an institution, and this is an institution, and they actually come together to create a system that is oppressing people. And so they can do that by understanding interdisciplinary ideas. We can also, through an interdisciplinary approach, address the curricular violence that students of color have been experiencing. Curricular violence is an idea that Dr. Stephanie Jones has developed, and you can actually research this. And I know that Learning for Justice has an article that talks about it too, that she wrote. And curricular violence, in short, are the moments where curriculum is used to traumatize children, intentionally or unintentionally, right? Just out of ignorance. Like, I didn't know that this simulation of slavery was really going to be a traumatic and violent event for students, okay? Because that's a thing, right? And so when I think about interdisciplinary learning, I, as a teacher, cannot teach this one thing by itself. I'd have to do a little bit more research. I'd have to be prepared to talk about this topic from different angles. And in the process, right, I would learn like, oh, that's probably not the best way to approach this. I want to think about not just this character in this story, but what was the economic situation at the time? So now we're going to talk about the economy. I also want to understand, what was the agricultural impact? So now we're thinking about the earth, and we're thinking about, like earth science, etc. And so an interdisciplinary approach also helps us to understand, or not understand, but dismantle some of this curricular violence that we're seeing, that we have been seeing, and that teachers end up on the news about, okay? And so remember, right, experiential learning is another one. And this one is often, I think, at least in my experience, seen as just like this fun thing that one teacher does. But here's the thing, the way that our schools have operated for too long, particularly for students of color, it requires us to walk into a room and to have this numbness. I'm calling it numbness, where I am expected to come in and just sit and listen and learn. I have to physically shut off in order to not be seen as misbehaving, to not be seen as aggressive, to not be a threat to my teacher. And so I've got to shut off, right, quite literally, and just be this stiff, good, well-behaved student. And so this classroom numbness that we display is our way to succeed. Experiential learning says, do not be numb. It says, I need you to learn with and through your body. Your body is a treasure, and I welcome that body in here in every way that it is. And so experiential learning means teaching content, or teaching young people content that is through a sensorial approach and very much about experiencing it. And it can be as simple as, we are going to go to the park and read this book together in the park. Or, we're reading about this one topic. Let's go visit the factory where they do that thing. I want you to learn it. And so that's how we get to that second bullet point about meaningful reflection. Okay. This meaningful, not reflection, learning, where meaningful learning takes place, because now a lot of research shows, and I wish that I could sit here and cite all of it. I'm going to have to invite you to just do the research too, or look at it in my book. But a lot of, meaningful learning happens, and the most retention happens when it happens in your body, and sometimes when play is involved, right? When you do a thing, you're more likely to remember the lesson or the learning or the point that you're supposed to take away. And so experiential learning actually is also about cognitive growth. And it is also a great opportunity to help young people develop the muscle of empathy and compassion. Way too many English teachers, and this is for everybody, but I'm just thinking in this moment about the way that it shows up in ELA. Books is how I'm going to help them to build empathy. Yeah, for sure. This is where we learn about other people's stories, or people different from us, and experiences that are different from ours. But what does that mean though? That's it? All you need to know is have awareness? We've got to go beyond awareness, right? And so how can we help young people to really legitimately develop empathy and have compassion? Well, they're going to have to feel something. They are going to have to, in their body, feel a thing. I can read a book about, let's say, Afghanistan and what's happening. I can just read it. I can read an article and be like, oh man, that sucks, right? Or I can go and sit with someone who is a refugee, who just showed up a week ago, and listen and say, oh, I understand. And here's this person. And now I have a different and heightened sense of empathy. And so experiential learning is it's one of the traits of how we're going to teach for and about social justice. And I hope that y'all are with me here. Flexible. It has to be flexible. Why? Where does flexibility come in? And actually, flexibility is, well, let me just say something too real quick before I even get into flexibility. These are they're very much cyclical, okay? Or maybe, let me say it this way, non-linear. You might, as a teacher, be listening to this and thinking, oh yeah, I've got that whole, the interdisciplinary part down, but flexibility, I've got to think more about that. And that's great. I am not at all assuming that I'm the only person who does this type of teaching, or has these traits at all. What I am hoping is that we all understand that it is also about juggling, right? As you're working on one, the other one might fall a little bit, and that's okay. Pick it up, right? Pick it all up. When we're already doing that, we're already juggling a lot. And so all I'm saying is, let's cluster these a little differently and be really thoughtful and methodical about how we're doing a good job for our kids, right? And for their communities and families, while working toward social justice. This doesn't make you an activist in the streets. This doesn't make you political. You are simply dealing with truth and knowledge, right? And working towards justice because of your love for this classroom community, and for this community in which you teach, and for this community called the United States. And so these, you can make arguments for flexibility based on some of the other, arguments that I just made for the other traits. Okay. So flexibility. Why is flexibility important? First of all, we're always in education, particularly like school mottos are about student leadership. We have student leaders. How much leadership do we really allow them to have though? Like if this is their school, this is their classroom, then they're not really leading. And I'm definitely generalizing, and I know that there are places where kids really do lead. What I do find is that it's not enough, they're not leading enough in the curriculum in terms of what they're learning. And so a textured teacher definitely welcomes student leadership, uses their leadership in the development of content. This is also how it's student driven. And it's also a way of humanizing education, because I am saying, you children, you young people, you are in here. This is for and about you, right? And so I'm going to be flexible enough to understand your needs and meet you where you are and say, hey, I know that we've got to get to this point because I'm a teacher and I'm facilitating our learning process. And I know where you want to go, because where you want to go, right, might be over here. And here I am limiting us because I think this is the goal. And so knowing who and what they want and humanizing their needs and their goals and their desires and kind of somehow marrying the two, right? This is the flexibility, the flexible approach that we also need. And then I think about the discipline disparities. I think about the ways that Black girls in particular are pushed out. I think about, just to cite Monique Morris in her book Push Out, when I think about the ways that Black boys in particular are disproportionately suspended, right? When I think about the way that so many students of color in particular get in trouble over basic discipline infractions, which their white counterparts are not penalized for, or these are rules that are very much culturally biased, right? So like schools that are saying you cannot walk across graduation, you're not getting penalized because of the way that hair naturally grows out of your head. Talk about inflexibility, right? And so we need a more flexible approach. And when you have all of this, when you have student leadership, when you have a humanizing of their educational experiences, when they are no longer getting kicked out of class, clearly we're going to have both academic and personal growth. So I hope y'all are with me here on that, because I really want to drive home the point that you have agency. I think that this profession does a very good job of telling us teachers, you can't do this, you can't do that, these are the rules, follow the standards, you are given a thing, which is in turn how we then treat students often, right? But they do have agency, and we know that. And so sometimes we need to be reminded, no, you have agency. You've been given a canned curriculum. Let me just say, I started texture teaching with a canned curriculum. I was told even what tests I was supposed to administer per book. What were the standards per book? I mean, it was rolled out for me, okay? And in that, I found ways to stick this in, to supplement that way, to shift this, to add a standard, right? And so you have agency. I want you to find a way, be a textured teacher for yourself. Be a textured teacher because your students deserve it. And be a textured teacher as a form of community healing. When you're sitting in that class with students and you're welcoming a guest from the community to come and talk to them, or you're addressing the gentrification that they're experiencing right now, or you're talking about the big incident that just happened in town, you are creating a moment and a space for some healing. You are showing that education can actually do this thing that it has never done or rarely done. And then we need to be textured because our future as a nation really does depend on it. Again, I know this sounds very alarming, but I mean, we really have to think about this. If we do not continue to or start addressing holistically as a field our racialized imagination, I'm thinking of Dr. Ebony Thomas's book, The Dark Fantastic. If we do not start to address this racialized imagination, we're going to continue having people put other human beings in cages. We're going to continue having people look at someone and think fear and shoot, right? We're going to continue having people that look at other people and based on the color of their skin say, let me arrest you, or let me harass you, or let me tell you what to do or not to do. Let me mistreat you. I mean, we are implicated in the system that we have right now. Our nation deserves better. And our nation, I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about people. The people, we deserve better. You deserve better. So you have agency. And I want you to find your texture. I want you to think, who are my ancestors as a teacher? Who am I walking into? Who am I walking in with? What am I walking into? What are the things that make me who I am? How is my teaching different in room 202 from room 204? Why am I special? What's my texture? And then build community with other textured teachers. And invite the people in your building. Let's find our texture. And they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? You're gonna say, well, hold on, I can tell you, hold on. Right? And break it down. And I want you all to just proudly say, there's a richness in who I am and in how I teach, and we're going to build community as a class, and we're going to build community as a building, as a school, as a community. So thank you for being with me right now, for sticking through this, for taking the notes that I hope you took. I want to invite you to engage with me, to follow me, or even if you already follow me, great. Just tweet at me and say, hey, this is what I thought. You can follow us on Multicultural Classroom on Instagram and Facebook, and I've put 2 of my resources down there that you're more than welcome to get. Right now for textured teaching, when this airs, there's a code you can use for a discount, TT2021. If you go to the Heinemann website and you put in that code, you can actually get a discount right now. So thank you for being with me. I am hopeful that you were already maybe tweeting or going on social media and using the hashtag. I promise that I'm going to be engaging and responding. So thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you've had a great day at the Ed Collab gathering. And then I'll see you on social media.